Well, not much has happened since we last spoke, has it? Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode number 6 of the Latics Lowdown with me, Corey Bissell. And like I just said, nothing's really happened, has it? I've not heard anything since we last spoke. We signed Saydee yet? I've no idea. Of course we have. A lot has happened in the last week, as expected, since we last spoke. And we're going to get into all of that on today's episode. Typical Latics, really, isn't it? I said in episode 1 of this podcast that we will do nothing for weeks, and then all at once, like London buses, 3 strikers will walk through the door at once, and we will be going through every single one of those today. We've got a lot to get into. This is going to be a long old chat. Get in the live chat, get your comments in, get any questions, any queries, anything really. Just get it in the live chat. This is going to be a long old episode, and we have got a lot to get into. So should we just dive straight into it? I'm going to start on a little bit of, I don't know if you call it negative news. I suppose by definition you can't call it anything else. Evening Callum, evening Matt. No, Matt, you bang on, mate. I've not heard a thing. Nothing's going on. There's nothing going on. Evening Brandon. Right, should we jump straight into a little bit of negative, or a little bit of something that upsets me, and I know that it'll upset Dan Stacey as well, and that is that Phoenix Patterson has finally moved, and it's not here. He's finally moved. He's gone to Stevenage for what is rumoured to be around 200, 300 grand, which, again, I mean, if you follow me on Twitter, if you don't, then you should. But if you follow me on Twitter, you'll know how much I've raved over Phoenix Patterson over a number of years now. And so to see him go for such a nominal fee to Stevenage is rather upsetting, I've got to be honest. But it's done now. Phoenix Patterson on the move. Fraser Murray clear. Brandon, yeah, fair. Both play off the left as of last season. I have my sneaky suspicions about Fraser Murray that I'm sure we'll get into, if not today, definitely at a later date when I go through how I expect us to play next season. Fraser Murray is definitely an interesting one. But second little bit of transfer news updates that we'll bring you, because we spoke about it last week, is that Macaulay Southam-Hales, he has also moved on, not in our direction as well. He has moved to Bristol Rovers. A player that, weirdly, I think it was Hugh suggested, and then we were linked to within 24, 48 hours. So, not to say that the Latics Lowdown may have started a transfer rumour, but the Latics Lowdown may have started a transfer rumour. Like I said, if we mentioned it on here last week, it was something brought up in the chat as players that we should be looking at. And all of a sudden we were actually linked to him. So I have a sneaky suspicion there is a small chance that may have come from here. So well done to you, and well done to the live chat and the community for somehow potentially starting our own transfer rumour, which is quite impressive for at the time 5 weeks into a show. So well done. But unfortunately, Southam-Hales off the Bristol Rovers after leaving Stockport County on a free. A player that I was not necessarily massive on us signing, but one that Hugh brought up last week and subsequently we got linked to. Now, do we get into the title of the episode straight away here? Goals, and even more goals. Of course, typical Wigan, off the back of last week's episode, decided that's not Christian Saydee. Hold on. That's give us Connor Taylor. Right, here we go. If Latics Lowdown is starting rumours, give us Connor Taylor from Bristol Rovers. Is this what we're going to do now? Is this what we are? We're going to start transfer rumours. Is that okay? Great. I can get behind it. If Connor Taylor is in the papers as being rumoured to Wigan over the next 48 hours, lightning doesn't strike the same place twice. It's got to be the Latics Lowdown starting on these rumours. So Christian Saydee, of course, confirmed pretty much as we came off last week, I believe. If not, it was definitely the day after. Confirmed in the early hours of the morning, I think. And we spoke about him in depth last week, in a lot of depth, because at the time it was our only sort of transfer rumour. So I won't bang on too much because a lot of people will have heard me speak about Saydee last week. What I will say is that even though he's took the number 9 shirt, he's not an out and out number 9. I wouldn't be surprised if we see him pop up in midfield at points throughout the season. And he's definitely the second striker in a 2. But very exciting, very physical, very good on the turn, very good driver of the ball. We looked at his defensive numbers last week. As a striker, a freakish for the championship. So again, that lends into my idea that he may pop up in midfield every now and then. But yep, Christian Saydee finally through the door. Our first striker signing of recent weeks, and it was not the only one. Now, divisive opinion, but it's happened, and we're here. Paul Mullin through the door on a season-long loan from Wrexham. Now, I've been quite vocal over recent weeks that I wasn't necessarily the biggest fan of the idea of bringing Paul Mullin to Wigan, but crucially, not on a permanent basis. Now, that for me changes a lot because you're probably not paying his entire wage, which is massive because I'd imagine he was on a good wedge at Wrexham. So it's nice to not be paying all of that. His injury record over the last 18 months is not great, but if you can get him fit, Paul Mullin is a goal scorer. He does know where the net is. Now, a lot of people will point to his League One record and say it's not the best, and I understand that. That's fair enough. I would argue that by saying, all right, his goal record in League One isn't great. It isn't, but he's always been in a poor team in League One at Cambridge, and then when he made the step up with Wrexham, who were one of the top end teams in the league, he didn't really play much. He was injury prone, and if you ask me, the way Wrexham play football, it's not, how do I say this? It's effective in the same way that Rotherham's style of football used to be effective, in that it will get you out of the league. But in my opinion, is it the best way to go about things? Probably not. And so you can sort of forgive him for not being a prolific goal scorer last season, again, with the injuries as well. Now, if you put him in a League One side like us, who are going to aim to create chances, you've got Fraser Murray, as Brandon said, out on that left or that right wing, who was one of the top creators in Scotland last year. And if you create good quality chances for Paul Mullin in the penalty area, he will put them away. Undoubtedly, he'll put them away. So I'm sort of turning round on this idea that maybe it isn't the worst possible thing that we could have done. Again, I'm not going to completely 180 and suddenly be like, oh, he's scoring 25 goals. He'll score 30. But the fact that it's a loan deal makes me a lot more comfortable with this Paul Mullin deal. Again, the wages were just a huge factor for me, and the idea that if you're getting him on a permanent, we would have probably put him on at least a 2-year deal. Again, then you're spreading that wages across 2 seasons, and it's not looking pretty financially, even though he would have come on a free if Wrexham had let him go. But a loan deal, I'm okay with Paul Mullin coming through the door. Obviously, it was only 3 goals from 9 starts last season, but again, we've touched on that. Like, there are reasons for it. And look, if there's one thing Ryan Lowe knows about football, it's how to develop a striker and how to get the best out of a striker. He's proved it time and time again. He spoke in the media and he sort of name dropped really Cameron Archer, Liam Delap, Ryan Hardy. Yep, exactly, Brandon. If he's bad, you can probably send him back in January. It's I imagine it won't be as easy to do that, Brandon, I would say, as it was with Ola Kigbe and Calvin Ramsey, Joe Hugel, because obviously they're Premier League clubs. They can take him back and loan him elsewhere. I wouldn't be surprised if it's a lot harder for us to do that with Paul Mullin. But there is always the possibility of being able to do that. So you are right. Callum, do you think McManaman is signing a new deal or has he gone? Now, I'll touch on this quickly in between strikers. This is an interesting one because if you'd have asked me when it was announced that we had offered contracts to Harry McHugh, Matty Corran, and Callum McManaman, whether I'd have thought McManaman would have signed his deal by now. I'd have said, yeah, I'd have thought it would be done by now. Which does beg the question, is it going to happen at all? I think it will. I believe it will. Ryan Lowe said in an interview a couple of weeks back, I believe, that he'd had talks with McManaman and that when the lads were back for pre-season and back off the holidays, he would have another round of talks with McManaman. I expect him to sign a new contract still. I'm not quite at the point where I'm starting to think he's gone. I don't see why he would go. I can't see if he's going, he's retiring, is what I would say. I can't see him going to another club. There's no point. There's nothing in it for him. Drop into League Two or whatever. I don't see the point in that. He's also spoke about Ryan Lowe's also spoke about the idea of bringing him McManaman into like some form of ambassadorial role after his career. Again, that leans into the fact that he's probably not going to go anywhere else. So I would expect him to sign an extension. Although I will say that it does slightly make me wonder with the idea that it hasn't already happened. But again, like it could be one of those things where we could have a bit of a dull week, and then someone will think, "Oh, what can we give the Latics Lowdown to speak about this week?" And then they'll give him the contract. So I expect it to happen overall, Callum. It's just it does seem to be dragging its heels a little bit, which some people will read into more than others. But I think it'll be fine. I agree with that. I think he does another 12 months and then goes upstairs. I agree, mate. I think he does another 12 and then becomes some form of academy. Like, I was going to bring this into today's show. I've not got the screenshot for it, but we'll touch on it. Sean Maloney, if you're not aware, Sean Maloney's been given an upstairs job at Celtic over the last week. He is the player progression manager or something like that. Anyway, Maloney's gone upstairs at Celtic basically for some kind of like player development role. I would expect something like that with McManaman. I don't think he'll become a coach. I can't see that. Ambassadors, I think, like, what do they really do? I could be so wrong on that. They could do a lot. I have no idea, but I don't know. I don't see them doing a lot. I can see McManaman being some sort of like academy developmental head of some kind of department or something like that. But yeah, absolutely. I can see him going upstairs after another 12 months. Again, you're getting paid to be a footballer as like the 20th man. You may as well take it. Anyway, we digress. Back to goals. That brings us to yesterday. And it brings us to this man. And I'm excited. I'm very excited about it. Dara Costelloe, coming in from Burnley. Spent last season on loan at Accrington and then the second half of last season on loan at Northampton. 6 goals and assists at Aki in the first half of the year, who ended up finishing 21st. 6 goals for Northampton, who ended up finishing, let's have a look, 19th. So, again, people will point to the goal record being in low numbers. I don't care. He's 22 years old. We've brought him in from Burnley. It's 350,000, rising to 500. And all I've seen, again, as we did with Christian Saydee this time last week, is positive things mentioned from the clubs that he has been at recently, which is great. Because usually you get the fans that are like, "Oh, he's terrible, and this is why it won't work." I've seen Northampton fans saying that they can't have him back. I've seen Accrington fans saying that he's a good player. I've seen Burnley fans saying that they want a buyback clause, which isn't the case, but high praise from Burnley fans even. Now, Dara Costelloe, I'm very happy. Very, very happy. Bit of money being spent, always lovely to see. We've found the wallet. And I'm just overall happy with it. He's got legs in behind, which I think offers us a different profile to Paul Mullin. He's not quite as strong as Saydee, but then who is in this league? That man is a beast. But he's got legs in behind. Very both-footed is what I've noticed while going through and sort of taking a look at him. Very, very much both-footed. He loves that finish across goal into the bottom corner on both his left and his right foot. Now, he's probably not as much of a penalty box poacher as Paul Mullin. But, again, it's all about profiles. When you've got a formation like Ryan Lowe does, where you play 2 centre forwards, this idea of having like multiple different ways of getting to goal. So, if we need to, at this point now, I think it's fair to say we've probably done all our striker business. unless he really sees Saydee as a midfielder, in which case we may get one more. But I don't foresee that, especially with giving him the number 9. So if we've done all our striker business, we can now definitively say Chris Z could potentially go out on loan. I'd personally put him out on loan, but we'll see with that. Chris Z's there. You've got Dara Costelloe, legs in behind, good finisher, solid player on a long contract on a permanent basis. Then you've got Christian Saydee, can drop in, take it to feet, very strong, good on the turn, good at driving with the ball. Then you've got Paul Mullin, again, very different. Penalty box poacher, stick the ball in the box, he'll get on the end of it, goal. Very different profiles. Malik Asamoah as well. God, can't forget about him. Electric pace. Not quite the end product, but electric pace in behind. Very different profile to the rest of them. So I'm liking the setup that we've got at the minute in the forward line. I've got to be honest, I'm really liking it. Matt, obviously, there. Don't forget Cole Sims, 32 goals in the under-18s and the under-21s. Look, it's going to be extremely hard of Cole Sims to make his way through the traffic of our current forward line. But it's not impossible. Like, we've seen it done before. There are 2 striker spots up for grabs. Injuries do happen. If a couple of players go down, suddenly he finds himself 3rd, 4th choice. He gets a few minutes off the bench in a cup game, which we'll get onto cup games in a moment. And suddenly he finds himself in the squad again and in contention to start a game. So it's not out of the realms of possibility, Matt. You are right. I do have high hopes for Cole Sims as a player. But I would say I wouldn't expect anything from him too soon, obviously, with the players that are in his way. But it's a nice option to have, isn't it? We seem to have a knack with academy players of just producing this line over and over and over. But yeah, I'm really liking the profile sort of differentiation that we've got going on up front right now. I'm really happy with the recruitment team. I think we've all got to be honest, and they probably think that's within the club as well. Come on leaps and bounds since last year. Of course, we have changed recruitment teams, so that is probably the reason we are going in a different direction. But I prefer this direction personally. Again, rising up to 500 grand on a 22-year-old striker who's got loads of experience for his age and is started to really start scoring goals now. You put him up front, again, similar to what I said about Mullin. You put him up front in a good team, and you never know, he can take off and suddenly become 15, 20 goal striker at 22 in League One. And then you've got a real asset there, both to hopefully fire you up the league. And if not, sell on for more than what you bought him for. A 3-year deal that could rise to a 4-year deal as well. Good to time down on a lengthy contract so that obviously he's not going to come in, score a load of goals and then leave on a free. But yeah, I'm really happy with Costelloe, really happy with Saydee, really happy with Mullin, really happy with Asamoah. I'm just happy in general with the difference in profiles that we've got in our forward line now. And I'm really, really buzzing for the season. Really, goals, goals, goals. The title of this pod. It was our issue last year. And hopefully, the way that we're lining up, it's not going to be an issue anymore, is what you could hope. One thing I just wanted to bring in on Dara Costelloe as well is this. Now, don't turn off immediately. I know there's a lot of people that have seen a graph and have mentally checked out. I appreciate it. But I'll talk us through this. This basically means, in layman's terms, if that's the phrase, Dara Costelloe, after spending 6 months in League One in the second half of last year, at a Northampton team, as we said, that finished 19th. Third highest expected assist per 90. So again, he's setting up his teammates, which is good link-up play. You always love that from a centre-forward, especially when we're playing 2 up front. They're just not finishing the chances. He's only behind Joseph and Vickers. Joseph, obviously, we're very familiar with. And then goals per 90. Right, let's walk us through this for a minute. Within this list, you've got 3 for certain, out-and-out hitmen last year in Kone, Stansfield and Godden. 3 of the top scorers in the division. Then around that, Marcus, Mullin, Collins, Fletcher are players that come off the bench and nick you a goal within the last 20 minutes, half an hour of a game, which is probably why the per 90s are so high. But obviously, Kone, Stansfield, Godden are just like, what would you call them? Beasts, really. Like, just goal scoring machines. Especially Matty Godden. Jeez, that man. So good. But that's very good company to be around for both of those statistics. Obviously, as you can see, these goal scorers here in Godden and these ones in the bottom right of the graph aren't as high on the assist numbers as Costello is. And those that are high on the assist numbers are nowhere near as far to the right as Costello. So you could make a case here, really, for Costello being the outstanding striker in the league when it comes to both metrics. He's sort of in that perfect area where he's near the top right of that graph and really sort of impressive, again, for a player that was in a subpar Northampton side, is what we'll go with. No disrespect to Northampton. But, again, representing good value, you bring him in, put him in a better team, you plug him into a team that has Paul Mullin alongside him for them assists, Fraser Murray putting in better chances for him in the box, and suddenly you could be looking at a really, really dangerous forward in this league going into next year. And I couldn't be happier with the signing of Dara Costello. Full transparency, he wasn't really on my radar, but I was saying earlier to a friend, this idea of like getting in there early for someone that could take off is really important. Obviously, look, it's great if you can go and sign a player for 800 plus grand who's done 20 goals the season before, but Ryan Lowe's already said it's not something he really does. He tends to develop people. And so this idea of getting in there early on a player that is showing promising underlying numbers that could really explode. Ryan Hardy, Cameron Archer, Delap, Emil Reese. He's done it before, Ryan Lowe. And I personally, I believe he's going to do it again here with Dara Costello. Matt, again, bang on. We've hardly spent on him. Now, I don't know if it's satire or not, and I really hope it was. But I saw a tweet yesterday, and it was a response to us signing Costello, and it was saying typical Wigan buying the league again. Let's just go back here really quick. I'll make myself smaller to make this point. Jay Stansfield, £20 million. I rest my case. I'm absolutely not hearing that anymore. This idea that we're buying the league because we spent £350,000 on a striker is outrageous talk. I won't hear it. It is absolute waffle. I've seen a striker move for literally, let's do the maths really quick, 40 times the amount of money Jay Stansfield went for. Like, what are we talking about buying the league, Brandon? You're bang on. Chelsea is all it is, mate. Like, it's outrageous to say that we bought the league because we bought Saydee and Dara Costello. It's actually mind-boggling. Anyway, moving on. Something else happened today. It's the reason we've pushed this podcast backwards. Fixture release day. One of my favourite days of the year. Now, just before we get into that, I'll take us through our cup fixtures because we'll get into the meat of the actual league campaign at the end of this pod. So, Virtue Trophy, the old Papa John's, the old Bristol Street Motors, whatever you call it by. Stockport and Salford. Now, on a personal note, as a man who goes to university in Manchester, that is beautiful stuff to have Stockport and Salford in the group stages. I will be at both of those games, absolutely without a doubt. And the under-21s team in our league is Wolves, which I don't know if this is just me, but I seem to think that we get Wolves like every other year. Again, this could just be me. I could be making this up, but I remember like having Bright Enabakare playing for us against Wolves' under-21s after coming from Wolves. And like, I think we had them not too long ago as well. Like, I don't know. Maybe it's just me. I feel like we get Wolves every time. But they will be joining us again in the group stage along with Stockport and Salford. And the Carabao Cup, that was also released with us playing Notts County at home, which is a nice little game. I'm quite happy with that one. It's a dangerous game. I mean, look, realistically, you've got to say early doors. Are we going to win the Carabao Cup? Probably not. But you'd have said the same about the FA Cup. But it's highly unlikely. But I'd have liked to get a more favourable fixture than Notts County in the first round. I've got to be honest. It's a nice little bit of prize money if you can make your way through those rounds. And Notts County, it's not an easy fixture by any stretch of the imagination. You could definitely cherry pick better than that. But they are our cup fixtures. Now, we're 25 minutes in. We've covered the strikers. We've covered our cup games. Do we get into the meat of it? Let's go. Right. Fixture release day. I love this. It's beautiful. Get in the chat. And I don't want to hear Bolton. Don't say Bolton. What fixture are you most looking out for when you look at fixture release day? Also, get in the chat. Which fixture specifically this year are you most looking forward to? I'll tell you mine. Now it's Bradford away. Boxing Day. Valley Parade. That's brill. That's great. Valley Parade on Boxing Day. That's lovely, that is. That is a great fixture. Matt, Cardiff away for uni. Fair enough, mate. Fair enough. Oh, you're a bit out in the sticks. Oh, God. See, I'm all right being in Manchester because, we went through this the other week to digress. Well, League One this year is lovely and northern, isn't it? It's lovely and northern. Let's just rattle a few names off here. I mean, we've got Stockport, Doncaster, Bolton. We've got, I don't know where Mansfield is. My geography might be failing me there. Anyway, Burton, sort of Midlands-ish way, but yeah, it's not far off. Blackpool, Bradford, Barnsley. Oh, Barnsley. Bolton again. It's lovely and northern this year, I find, which is great. Anyway, personally, yep, I'm agreeing with Brandon, not Bradford. I'm agreeing with Brandon. Bradford away. It's a lovely game, that on Boxing Day. It's absolutely lovely. Right. Anyway, my thoughts on this. Now, gut instinct, not so happy about the first lot of fixtures. Northampton at home is fine. Leyton Orient away. Right. It's a tricky fixture. They won't be as good as they were last season, I believe, because a lot of their best players, the goalkeeper Keeley, Charlie Kellerman, of course, we know a lot about, Jamie Donnelly, they were all loan players. So I don't expect Leyton Orient to necessarily be as up there. I know Ethan Galbraith has also been linked away with a move away to Huddersfield. My apologies. With the uni location, I'm looking for. Oh God, if you're looking at Exeter away as your like ideal away day, can we just say I am so sorry. Oh dear. If you're looking for Exeter and Plymouth away, that is, I feel for you, mate. But okay, Leyton Orient, bit of a banana skin. Away as well. It's not great. I've got to be honest. It doesn't fill me with a lot of joy. Peterborough. Now, on Peterborough, a lot of people will look at that game and be immediately terrified. Don't be, is what I would say. Peterborough are going to be a beatable team next year. Now, again, no disrespect, but unless they spend, which it doesn't look like they're really doing, they're kind of sticking to that model of bringing through non-league players, which has worked for them at times, but it's sort of seemingly grinding to a halt. So unless it really clicks into gear them next year, Peterborough I don't expect to be up there. So on the face of it, Peterborough is a scary game. I'm not as worried about that one. Luton away. Oh, it's not great for fourth game in, is it? It's not great. It's really not ideal. Now, they've got some Premier League quality players in there. Like what's Alfie Doughty still doing at Luton? You know what I mean? Now, they'll lose some players. They will. They've also got the pull to bring in good players, though. They've got a good manager in Bloomfield. However, Asgard as well. Oh, I expect him to go. I've got to be honest. I expect Bradford to go. But did I just say I expect Bradford to go? Sorry, my head's going here. I can't read and speak at the same time, apparently. I expect Asgard to go. But Luton is still a tricky fixture. It's a very tricky fixture. The only hope is that it's so early in the season and they're already on like a downward trajectory of severe complexion that you could catch them cold and like hit them again. But Luton, not ideal. Stockport as well in there. Oh, it's just a bit of a. It's not a grim start, but it's not a good start. Peterborough without Poku is like Wigan with Maloney. Moving on. Anyway, what? I don't even know what that's meant to mean. Oh dear. Are you trying to say that it's a lack of attacking output? Because if that's what you're trying to get at, Matt, then you're probably not too far off. Anyway, we've spoken enough about the opening games. Let's get into it. Saturday, September 20th. Now, that's 5 days before my birthday, if you care. Bolton away. That has potential to either break or make my birthday. But it'll be an interesting game nonetheless. Derby Day on the 20th of September, the first time around at the Tough Sheet. Schumacher versus Lowe. Obviously, Schumacher did get the best of him in that first game, so it'll be interesting to see if there's any sort of shake-up. I mean, obviously, the squads are going to change drastically between now and then, and they will have done from the previous game to the next game, but I kind of like it. It's a fair few games in. You're warmed up by then. I'd say from sort of that Doncaster home game onwards is where you really, really start to be able to see what you look like in a season and whether you'll be really kicking on that year. Now, hopefully, in our case, it'll be 3 points at the Tough Sheet. As it, I need to be careful here of getting clipped. It tends to be 3 points at the Tough Sheet, is what I will say. It tends to be quite healthy for the goal difference, is what I will also say. Now, I'm being very wary because the last thing I want is to be on a Penguin-style compilation from a Bolton fan this time in September. But with a Ryan Lowe developed team, with the squad that he would like, I'm looking forward to that game. And I'm really, really being careful here. Now, moving on. Key clusters is what I will cover here. Key clusters. Now, there are two. They're the same teams, and they've given us two clusters that are the exact same, and I don't like them. Don't like them at all. Cardiff, Plymouth, Wickham. Why? In fact, you can throw Bolton in there as well, actually. I'm just saying. Cardiff, Wickham, Plymouth, Bolton. Twice. We've got them all in a row. Well, yeah, we do. Oh, no, there's a Doncaster game there in between Bolton and Wickham in the second half of the season. But twice we've got 4 out of 5 games being against the big hitters in this league. Now, I don't like that at all. They are season-defining months. 100%. Absolutely season-defining months. And I do slightly worry. I've got to be honest. Slightly worry. But you do naturally, don't you? The running, however, one thing that I will say. Now, in each division, or in at least in, let's say, 2 out of 4 English divisions, you tend to have a team later on in the season who just kick on in the last like 10 games and go on this mad unbeaten streak and either sneak a playoff spot or European football in the Premier League's case or whatever. I can see us potentially being that. I've got to be real. I can see it. I can see a world where Ryan Lowe does all right, like 10th, up until sort of March time. And then all of a sudden, you've got a Barnsley side that look to be struggling in the transfer window. Exeter, Reading, fair enough. Leyton Orient, who'll be weak. Northampton, Mansfield, Port Vale, Wimbledon, Stevenage. And that is a favourable end to the season, I must say. Now, of course, in typical Wigan fashion, I've said that, we'll be in the playoffs up until that point, and we'll bottle it in those games. But I really like that running. I really like that running because if you can get to that stage and be in with a sniff of the playoffs, you've got a real chance. You've got a real chance of pushing in there, going on a long unbeaten streak there at the end of the season and sneaking a sixth, a fifth spot. It's nice. I like it. I'm a fan. So thank you for those fixtures. The FL, I guess, whoever decided them. I think they're quite nice. I think they're quite nice personally. I'm a fan. But that's it really. That's all we've sort of got to bring. Now obviously signings are weirdly for these sort of episodes are probably more boring than rumours. They're not boring at all, but like what more can I particularly show you here about like our signings in sort of the roots of it? Because again, that stat sheet about Dara Costelloe, really promising stuff. Really promising stuff. But it's hard to say really on a lot of things here until we actually see them kick a ball in a Ryan Lowe system. One thing that I would like to touch on, the way in which we're going to line up. Now, I've seen people saying it's going to be a front three, weirdly, of like Mullin, Costelloe, and Saydee, which I don't foresee. People saying Saydee will play as a 10. I don't doubt in certain games he may, but Ryan Lowe primarily plays a 6 and 2/8. I expect moving forwards that it will be two of those three players that would play, with obviously Asamoah picking up minutes and Z picking up the occasional minutes if he doesn't go out on loan. In terms of the system and in terms of sort of what to expect moving forwards. Now, I'd love to know actually. Chuck in the comments. Next position, if you could target one set position now for the rest of this transfer window, what would be your next priority? Personally, I would go. It's between one of two. It's either a wing back or a midfielder. I think a lot of people will agree with that. In terms of the midfield, I believe that we need someone in the ilk of sort of the players that we've been linked to already over the last few weeks. Anthony Evans, of course, and Javier Simons, who has unfortunately gone down the road. But it would be nice to see sort of a driving 8 with creative tendencies to be brought through the door next. Of course, it's all well and good having goals, as we've talked through today, but ultimately, you've got to supply them. I think Christian Saydee's slightly different in that he's probably out of the three the most likely to create for himself. Costelloe, more a runner, gets on the end of things. Paul Mullin again, penalty box poacher. You need to create for him. He's unlikely to drop deep, take men on, and smack it in the top corner, is what I'd say about Paul Mullin. I don't doubt there's a clip out there of him doing that, and that'll be tweeted at me later, but you know what I'm trying to get at. So you need to provide for them. Fraser Murray, I think he's going severely under the radar this season, personally. I think he is probably our best bit of business so far. Having that many chances created in the Scottish League for a Kilmarnock team who finished in the bottom half of the table is ridiculously good. Bit of business on a free transfer. And I expect him to personally play at right wing back because I think Ryan Lowe likes having same foot, same side of the pitch, as we saw last season with the Johnny Smith left wing back experiment. I expect Fraser Murray to personally play on the right hand side. Now, with the link to Southam Hales, that would potentially go the other way, in that we are looking at a right wing back to play Murray on the left, in which case, fair enough. But I expect us to target wing backs potentially on both sides. I expect us to target an attacking midfielder. And it'll be interesting over the next few weeks to see what sort of transfer rooms we've been linked to. We talked through it on the early episodes of this podcast about when Ryan Lowe was so vocal about wanting free strikers through the door. People like Michael Cheek getting rumoured, like Sam Dolby. It was always going to be the case where we have rumours that pop up that probably were never on Wigan's radar, if we're being honest, because we've put it out there that we want 3 strikers, and so if you're an agent of a striker and you want to move, it's a desirable thing to put in the media that look, Wigan want 3 strikers, they're interested in us, and then they get a better move with more money somewhere else, or they get a better contract at the current club. So that's out the way now. We've got the 3 strikers. It'll be interesting to see where we move next, is what I would say. Wing backs, midfielders, potentially centre backs. Should Sam Tickle go, obviously we'll need a goalkeeper. So it'll be really intriguing few weeks here. I expect these episodes to start getting a bit more needle in them, is what I would say, because it's not going to be as clear cut anymore as to who we're linked to. Obviously, striker wise, like I said, you just get linked to everyone under the sun because they're the goal scorers, they make the most money. Their agents are probably the best at getting the moves. And when you've been so vocal about wanting 3 of them, no wonder you're linked to so many of them. We're linked to midfielders and wing backs now. It's probably serious interest, and it'll be interesting to see over the coming weeks sort of what a Ryan Lowe linked wing back and what a Ryan Lowe linked midfielder looks like. I expect us to go and get an attacking style midfielder. Obviously, with the links to Simons and Anthony Evans, the similar sort of profiles of players. So I do expect it to be an attacking-minded midfielder that we bring in. You look at Ryan Lowe sides in the past. You look at Danny Mayer at Plymouth. I expect us to bring a player in that mould rather than sort of the Panucci Kamara of that team. I expect Babaradico to be able to do that role fine, to be honest. But yeah, it'll be an interesting few weeks really here and the Latics Lowdown in the Wigan camp. Brandon, I agree with this. I think if Dion Rankine, sorry, I can't read. Dion Rankine could fit Lowe's system as the right wing back like he did at Exeter. Completely agree, mate. Completely agree. This is why the Southam Hales link makes me think it genuinely came from here. Because if you think about it logically, if I'm right in thinking that Fraser Murray is going to play on the right-hand side because he's right-footed and that's what Lowe likes, you've got Fraser Murray, and then Dion Rankine has played in a similar system at Exeter. Do you really need to go and get another right-back? Of course, if you want a defensive option to like lock down in the last 20 minutes, Toby Civic could do that. So, do you really need that? We've seen Jensen Weir played at right wing back at points. Ryan Lowe spoke about his movement of Potts at Preston, and he likened that to Jensen Weir when he had a good performance at right wing back. So he's not afraid to sort of shift players about into positions that may be foreign to them as well. So I feel like we might be okay at right wing back. I might be overseeing that. I could be wrong. And again, I wouldn't be overly against us bringing another one in, but I'd prioritise the left because you've got Luke Robinson, who I don't think suits the left wing back role. I think he's more of a left-sided centre half. You've got Kamani Miller, but obviously he's quite young. And other than that, Joseph Hungbo, I suppose, is still here. He's a really athletic player, so he could potentially do that. But starting wise, you'd probably want someone who really fits your system down to a T. And so I'd probably target a left-sided player personally if I was Ryan Lowe. But if I was Ryan Lowe, I wouldn't be sat behind a microphone telling Ryan Lowe what to do. I'd be doing it. So I suppose it'll be interesting what he targets. But we're going to leave it there for today. Of course, any transfer news over the coming weeks we'll bring you next week. We'll be back on the usual schedule next week, Wednesday, 7 p.m. Thank you, everyone, for joining the live chat and getting in about fixtures and transfers and opinions. As always, thank you very much. Really want to build a nice little community here in our little corner of the internet. It'd be lovely to see you all there Wednesday, 7 p.m. next week again, interacting as always. But thank you very much for watching this week's edition of the Latics Lowdown. We'll be back next week. Again, no transfer rumours to bring you this week directly. But I don't doubt between now and next week, we'll have something. Someone will link us with someone. Hey, you never know. It could well be Connor Taylor from Bristol Rovers. It could be. If that happens, just know we're on it. Thank you everyone for joining. I'll see you next week. Ta-ra.